Good morning. Good morning and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the DGIM Grand Rounds today. I am Mary Ellen Goldhammer. I'm one of the course directors for the DGIM Medical Conference Series. Just a reminder to please mute, but you are welcome to keep your cameras on. And today's a really special Grand Rounds. You may want to just grab a cup of coffee and leave your camera on and create a real sense of community. We are recording the session today. We're also offering CME, maintenance of certification, nursing credit, and today we're also offering risk management credit since we're focusing on physician wellness. Just a reminder, you have up to 7 days to record your attendance and then through June to complete the evaluation to get all those great credits. So today is our first ever Joy Rounds. It has been planned and will be moderated by Dr. Suzanne Koven. I will introduce Dr. Koven, who will then go ahead and introduce our panel. So Dr. Koven received her BA in English Literature from Yale and her MD from Johns Hopkins. She also holds a Master's in Fine Arts in Nonfiction from the Bennington Writing Seminars. After her residency training and chief residency in medicine at Hopkins, she joined the faculty at HMS and practiced primary care internal medicine at Mass General Hospital for over 30 years. She's an associate professor of medicine at Harvard Medical School and holds the Valerie Winchester Family Endowed Chair in Primary Care Medicine at Mass General. In 2019, she was named the inaugural writer-in-residence at Mass General. Her essays, articles, and blogs and reviews have appeared in the Boston Globe, the New England Journal, the Lancet, New Yorker, Psychology Today, the LA Review of Books, Stat, and other publications. Her monthly column, In Practice, appeared in the Boston Globe and won the Will Solomon Award for Excellence in Medical Writing from the American Medical Writers Association. She now co-directs the Media and Medicine program at Harvard Medical School and speaks widely to a variety of audiences on literature and medicine, and importantly, the role of women in medicine. Her essay collection, Letter to a Young Female Physician, was published in 2021 and is on my reading list for the summer. Suzanne will now introduce our panelists. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Mary Ellen, and thanks for all you do in organizing these wonderful rounds. I want to tell you a little bit about how this idea of having a Joy Rounds got started. In the program that I co-direct at the med school, Media and Medicine, we have a guest faculty member who's a reporter for the New York Times. Her name is Tina Rosenberg, and she founded something called the Solutions Journalism Network. And what they do is they think of problems that everyone thinks are unsolvable, and they identify programs or entities that seem to have solved them in some way. So, for example, how did this particular underfunded school end up with kids who were so high achieving? Or a really interesting recent one was they were thinking about the assumption that technology is an enemy of indigenous culture, which it likely mostly is, except it turned out that the installation of solar panels helped revive traditional basket weaving among indigenous women in the Philippines. You get the idea. So I mentioned this concept to Josh, and he said, well, oh yeah, in science, that's called a positive deviant. And I started to think, well, what would happen if Tina and the solutions journalists came to our community? You know, what would be the assumption they would be interested in challenging? Well, I think one of them might be that we're all miserable all the time. Now, there is no question it's really challenging to be in practice right now. However, I think just about everybody here would say that they have moments, and probably even more than moments, where they say, yeah, that's it. Or a line I love from the poet Naomi Shihab Nye, moments where you say, This is the world I want to live in, the shared world where not everything is lost. So I said to Mary Ellen, what would happen if we gathered 3 physicians, early, middle, later career, and asked them how they find joy in practice? And she thought that since May is Mental Health Awareness Month, that would be a really great idea. Now, I want to make one thing really clear. The idea here today is not to minimize the challenges we face, nor is it to say, hey, you know, these guys are happy. Why aren't you happy? No, that's not what this is about. What this is about is hearing about the very varied ways folks have managed their careers to find joy and to simply celebrate and be inspired. Now, you all, I think, know and love our 3 speakers, but I'm going to introduce them in some detail just so you get a sense of the richness of their careers, which I found incredibly inspiring and moving. First, we have our early career physician, Kathy May Tran. She's a hospital medicine physician at Mass General, and she's also a clinical educator, the director of the hospital medicine elective. She's associate editor of case records at the New England Journal of Medicine and associate editor for the upcoming book, 50 Studies Every Hospitalist Should Know from Oxford University Press. She directs the MGH Happiness Committee and serves on the MGPO Frigoletto Committee and the Department of Medicine's Center for Physician Wellbeing. She has combined her interests in the arts and medicine in several initiatives, including Boston Hope Music, which matches conservatory students to clinicians for music learning to heal healers. Stories of the MGH, a moth storytelling type event for healthcare workers. Virtual bedside concerts, which connects musicians with patients to combat loneliness and isolation, and the MGH Asian American and Pacific Islander Coalition. Not to mention, last month, I was delighted that she co-directed with me our annual MGH a celebration of National Poetry Month, performance and discussion of an excerpt from King Lear in the Ether Dome, in which she played the daughter Cordelia. So she acts, she edits, she plays the violin, she doctors, and much more. Kathy, welcome.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. Thank you so much to everyone for being here today. It really means a lot to me and the other speakers that you value well-being and resilience, and that you're thinking about joy and happiness. It's something that I spend a good deal of my life thinking about. So I know many of you, but I don't know all of you. So let me introduce myself. My name is Kathy May Tran. I work in the hospital, like Suzanne said. I do procedures. I teach at HMS, and I also attend on the Bigelow. And sometimes I go out to the Lakota Reservation in South Dakota to work there too. And I love editing for the New England Journal. But you know, life is not all work and no play. I definitely have fun too. You might find me volunteering at the marathon or accidentally writing social media posts that go viral. And you know, you guys helped collect so many socks for the Boston Healthcare for the homeless program. Music, these are my passions, and I like to bring that to the MGH, and also community building too. I think that I have a lot of fun in the hospital, and I think that's why Suzanne invited me here today. And if the director of the Happiness Committee is not happy, then something must be terribly wrong, right? But, it's not true. This overly photoshopped, like Instagram ready life that you see before you. Like, I haven't always been happy, and I'm not always happy now. And I think that the people who know me now are surprised to know that this happiness, when I see someone in the elevator, they're like, why are you always so happy? This is a new thing for me. And it's something that I'm still working on. Joy and happiness is something that I spent most of my adult life thinking about a lot for a lot of reasons. And the search for happiness has actually been a conscious one for me, that has been a personal journey that has spilled over into my work life. So I thought I'd share a little bit about what I've learned in that journey, both from other people and through myself, and through lots of therapy too, I have to note. And for example, from Hassan, don't compare your insides to other people's outsides. Life is not what it seems. So maybe we can start over. Let me reintroduce myself. My name is May Tran. My mom and dad grew up in Vietnam, and after the fall of Saigon, they each made their way to America. My mom was one of 9 siblings, and she was the first of those to escape from Vietnam. She was a boat person. And was one of the first waves, smuggled herself out in a fishing vessel that intentionally sunk in order to force a rescue. And she found herself outside of Pulau Pidong, Malaysia, which ended up being a refugee camp, but at that time it was just a jungle. And when she came to America, she cleaned hotels. She brought home a hotel menu, and that's how she learned English. And when she finally mustered up the courage to show her boss, who was an immigrant himself from Poland, he let her bus tables in the hotel restaurant. And as she learned more and more of the menu, he let her host and then eventually waitress. And she worked her way up from the breakfast to the lunch and then finally to the dinner service. My parents met in America. They met in this place called Louisiana. And my brother was born in a charity hospital in Pineville, a town of about 10,000. And a year later, I was born. My name was May. It's a Vietnamese word meaning cloud, but also an American name that's for my birth month, May 8. My mom wanted me to have an American first name, so she wrote down the name of the OB resident who delivered me. So that's how I got the name Kathy. So it's not short for Catherine or Kathleen, because the name tag just said Kathy. And my parents moved to Georgia afterwards, and their marriage was really hurtful and complicated. My mom taught me and my brother how to read and write, and that was her way of learning English herself and polishing English herself. But my dad didn't want her to learn, and he didn't want her to grow or work or be independent. And if anyone knows my mom, they would know that she's all of those things. And it was an emotionally and a physically hurtful relationship. And so before I was even 5, she put us in the car and we just left. So, you might think that the divorce was a really, really sad thing, and it was, but at the same time, it was really good. My mom, my brother, and I look back, and I can genuinely and wholeheartedly say that we're grateful for it. It came up all the time. We're very happy for it. And it was just 3 of us. We were very, very close, my mom, my brother, and me. She had to raise us on her own, and she worked really hard. On a regular basis, she would stop at a red light and say, I'm going to close my eyes, tell me when it turns green. And that was her way of getting rest. And despite her really hard efforts, we lived well below the poverty line. We were on welfare, we were on food stamps and Medicaid. We lived in a really dangerous neighborhood, a 1-bedroom apartment that was terribly roach infested. We heard gunshots every weekend, but it was all we could afford. We literally saved every penny. Whenever the Whoppers went on sale for $1, we'd get one and we share it. It was like an exciting time. It sounds really cliche, but even though we were poor, we were really rich in love and joy. I didn't know how poor we were. On some level, I did. And I don't think that the people at school knew either, because our family was so different. So my mom worked full time, but she also went to school and she got her GED and then her associates. And every day she'd pick us up from school, and then we would go to her school. So she'd sit in lectures, and then my brother and I would sit in the aisles at her feet, and we would read a book. And after that, we would drive to work with her, and she'd leave us in the car while she was a waitress. And when it got dark, my brother and I would fight over who sat in the front seat, because that's where the street light showed down, and so we could finish our book. And when her boss eventually found out that she was leaving us in the car, then he took us to the party room and he put seats together, and we took a nap there, and that was kind of our playroom. And if there was a party, he sat us at the bar and he had us fold napkins while we watched our mom run back and forth, and it was really fun. But when I was in the 5th grade, my mom took us to the bus stop, and later that day, the teachers pulled us out of school and said that something had happened. We learned later that a man had hidden in a closet, and he had stabbed my mom in the stomach and critically injured her hands. And he almost raped her, but a picture of my brother fell down, and he didn't know she had kids. And she said to him, "If you leave, I will forgive you and God will forgive you." And she helped him turn his shirt inside out to hide the blood. And she gave him everything in her purse, which was $25, and he left. That was really hard as a child, to come home and see bloodied handprints on the wall, to help your mom flip the mattress because her hands were so bandaged up you couldn't see the fingers. She didn't have insurance, so they stapled her skin closed. And she didn't have insurance, so my brother and I removed the staples ourselves, and we just used the tweezers in the bathroom. But blessings do come in disguise, and because of that tragic event, we never worried again. My mom heard about this charity called Habitat for Humanity. They build houses for poor people, and the houses were bought with labor, not with money. So every Saturday, we went to the Habitat work site to volunteer building other people's houses. And the volunteers became our friends, our family, our adopted fathers. I say father because I was the only girl on the work site. But eventually we received our own turn. We've received this beautiful home, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 900 square feet. And we were involved in every step of the way, from pouring the concrete to raising the walls to installing the insulation to hanging the windows. And my brother and I picked out the colors with questionable taste, but my mom let us do it all. The local church filled our pantry with food. And after that, we spent every week, even though we didn't have to, continue to volunteer for Habitat in the food pantry. I did that every day until I left Georgia, and my brother continues to do that every day now. We also went to church, and we met a woman who played the violin, and she lent us hers, and she taught us how to play the violin. And I also learned how to play the viola too. When you don't have a lot of money and a lot of materials to say thank you to people, music is a good way to do that. So life got better. My mom continued school. She became an ICU nurse. My brother went to Mercer and became a pharmacist. And I eventually graduated from Yale before moving to New York City to work. And then something else happened. My mom went to her colonoscopy alone. She didn't even tell us she was having one, because I was working after post-grad in New York. My brother was in Atlanta. And on the day of her colonoscopy, they let her stay in the waiting room until the sedation wore off, because she didn't have anyone to ask to drive her home. And soon after, she was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer, and the world stood still. And the world had never stood still. If any of you think that I'm busy now, you haven't seen my mom and you haven't seen my brother, but now it had to. All of a sudden, we were reminded that some things matter and some things don't. I had just gotten to school at NYU, into medical school, and I decided not to go. And instead, my mom and I drove to Houston, Texas, where we moved in with my cousin, and we had started her chemo at MD Anderson. And you won't believe it, but my mom says that the years she had cancer were the best years of her life. My brother and I had more or less proven that we were going to be okay, and she felt that she was okay to relax and enjoy life. keywords, supposed to, but she couldn't. She stayed busy. She collected colorful grocery bags and crocheted them into these purses. She memorized full chapters from the Bible and recited them all the time. She made paper flowers from old books, and she collected the envelopes from junk mail to make this modular origami swans, which she loved to give away at church. And we spent a lot of time with family. We drove back and forth between Texas and Louisiana. And when my uncle was diagnosed with metastatic lung cancer, we spent every day and night there while he was delirious. And we helped raise my cousin's children the way that my family helped raise me when I was very young before my parents divorced. And we spent a lot of time with my grandma. And eventually, I went back to NYU and I started school. And eventually, when my mom exhausted all of the chemos and the target therapies and the clinical trials, she went to hospice, and then she came to New York to live with me. When she came to New York, I stopped going to school, and I didn't tell her. And I had never really lied to my mom before, and she was suspicious. But as all mothers do, she figured it out. And she never let me see her pain. But when she was ready, she told me, and I called my brother. He drove up from Georgia. My aunt, my uncle, my cousin, my grandma drove from Louisiana. And we were all in the apartment when she passed away. After this, I was really lost. I didn't go back to school, and I tried to remember maybe over a year being lost. And I drove a lot. I thought a lot. I cried a lot. I lived with my brother for most of the time. And our community took care of us, like Mr. Fred and Miss Debbie, the Habitat volunteers who became our adopted parents. They let me know that it was okay to cry, and it was okay not to be happy. They also let me know that it was okay to be happy too. My mom was a lot of beautiful things. She was generous and kind and loving. And she had a lot of joy. Joy is the internal contentment that we feel inside in our hearts. But I don't think that she was happy. And happiness is that contentment that we show, that cheer, that merriment. She always felt really guilty feeling happy, because how could she relax when so many people were hurting? How could she relax and feel happy when there was so much work to do? And she felt a lot of guilt. My life was going to be different. And even though my mom could never be happy because she was sacrificing so much for me and my brother, I knew that I could be, because all of that hard work and that sacrifice that she gave us, up until her final gift of donating her body to science, paved the way for me to be happy. So I learned that happiness is a skill. And I'll go further and say that happiness is a choice. And I know that this is controversial. That's why there's an asterisk there. I don't want anyone to feel that they have to try harder or to be more resilient and just be happy. It's not something that you can control. Joy is inside, happiness is on the outside. And there's a time and a place for every emotion. And there's a time and a place for unhappiness too. You can't turn it on, you can't turn it off. It's how you feel. But you can allow yourself to feel it. You can nurture it with things like gratitude and kindness and self-care and community, like we're doing today. I spent years thinking about this, and I have to admit, for a lot of that time, I felt guilty just like my mom. I'm just like her, and she taught me a lot of things. But by the time, after I finished my residency here, and by the time I joined HMU, I'll be honest, as I was puzzled that people kept commenting on how happy I was. This was a new thing. I had always been nice, I think, hopefully, question mark, but I had never been happy before then. So I leveraged that happiness into something that my mom instilled me, a life of service. And I realized that taking care of others is taking care of yourself. That was an epiphany for me. And that's something that we try to bring through the happiness committee. I'm in Boston without family here, so I can honestly say that HMU is my family away from home. We hang out in the hospital, we hang out outside of the hospital, we celebrate holidays together, we laugh together, and trust me, as of last night, we also cry together too. We watch out for each other. We watch out for each other and we help each other. And this is probably the closest family I've had outside of my own. So when the pandemic came, that amplified much greater. And again, blessings come in disguise because the happiness community shifted and we revived things like our Happiness Heroes program that recognizes people in MGH that bring kindness to others. And here's Ruel Lass in the cafeteria who always says, hello, friend. We started the Boston Music Teaching Project. We started the Stories for the MGH, which Suzanne talked about. And we tried to highlight the good in each other. So now I'm entering a new phase of my exploration of joy and happiness, and I'm not sure where it'll take me, and I'm not sure why it's happening either, but it is something that I recognize in myself. I, way back when, was joyful but not happy. Then I had this period of being joyful and happy. And now I'm in a phase where I'm actively striving to protect that joy and happiness. I think it needs to be a lot of effort and thought into making sure that it's not lost. Like I said, I used to feel guilty for accepting happiness, and now it's okay. And I still feel guilty about spending time on myself sometimes now too, even though I cognitively know it's okay and I should. So I do a lot of things for myself nowadays. I hang out with my friends and my work family. I convince my friends to dress up in ridiculous costumes. I spend hours looking at pictures of my new niece and nephew. I spoil my dearest dog, and I'm discovering what it feels like to be loved. This joy, happiness, self-love, purpose, meaning, these are skills, these are choices, and these don't just happen. We have to allow ourselves to feel it. We have to allow ourselves to accept it. And maybe that way it can grow and spread. So the last thing I learned is to be grateful. And I just wanted to share this picture again. This is our Habitat house. And I actually didn't know this until years later, the year that my mom passed away, when she requested this picture. I was like, Mom, we got to move the car. It's like in front of the house. And like I'm wearing my pajamas. She's wearing her pajamas. But later on, she told me that this picture has everything that she loves in life and everything that brings her joy. She has her home. She has a car, which is a sign of upward mobility. She has her children, me and my brother, our dear dog, April, and in her hand, she's holding the Bible. So she was grateful. I try to be grateful. And I think that's probably the key to joy and happiness. So thanks for having me here.
Kathy, thank you for that truly beautiful presentation. I really hope you feel 140 sets of arms around you right now. And happy birthday early.